Chris Kreider is back home temporarily. A reunion at the Garden, but without Mika Zibanejad. How did that go? We'll explore that. Plus the Battle of Florida, minus Andrei Vasilevsky, and a few other critical matchups tonight ahead on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before. Only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Good evening or good morning, hockey fans. Welcome into Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network around. Your teams every day on Locked On. Thanks for making us your place to get a recap of all the night's action in the NHL during the regular season or the playoffs on Locked On NHL Game Night. Whether it's one game or 16 or everything in between, we are here with the latest for you. And we're available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. So make sure you go check us out on the YouTube. We enjoy reading your comments. I enjoy reading your comments. I want to hear what you have to say. In particular, there's some bizarre stuff that happened off the ice tonight as well. So we'd love to hear exactly what you have to say on some of the stuff that's been going on off the ice. You'll leave your comments on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com. Place your live NFL bets all season long. I'm Alex Sweeterspiel. I write about hockey for a website called Yard Barker, and I hang here on Locked On NHL Game Night. He's Eddie Garcia, host of Locked On LA Kings, and a co-host here on Game Night as well. Eddie, once again, the Rangers and Kings play on the same night, and I'm telling you, I think we might be cursed. I just don't think they can do it. I don't think they can win when playing on the same night. It's only it's happened one time, and it took a really long time to get there. I think we're the bad luck charm. If the Kings and Rangers play together on the same night that you and I host a pod, they're guaranteed to lose.
I take no responsibility for the losses by the LA Kings. They're doing this all on their own. So I have noticed that you and I doing the show together does not coincide with us being happy with the performance of our hockey team most of the time.
Yeah. So I mean, that might make for better podcastery, if you will.
Maybe.
Let's dive right into it. We are going to start with the New York Rangers, which I hate doing as a Rangers fan. I usually prefer to stick them inside somewhere, but we had to talk about it because, of course, a lot of weird stuff went down. In addition to the return of Chris Kreider, the return of Jacob Trouba. Granted, they did meet one time last season, but the return of Jacob Trouba to the Garden. And there were a couple of ex-Ducks in Ranger uniforms tonight as well. Sam Carrick or Ho Vakanainen. Maybe not as big of a deal as Trouba and particularly Kreider were to the Rangers. But Anaheim comes to town. Big tribute for both those guys, particularly Kreider. And the Ducks get the win in this one, a 4-1 final, including an empty netter. Though there was a post-empty netter goal. That one always hurts just a little bit. Jackson Lacombe scores a shorty against the Rangers' 5-forward power play, which continues to struggle. But even weirder, it was really more of Will Coley coming in, trying to make a play defensively, and he accidentally kicks the puck into the net. It was that kind of night for the Rangers. They tied it up at 1 on a Matt Robertson goal that was originally ruled a high stick, and Lucas Dostal sold it very, very well. Hey, Vincent Trocheck, he hit that with a high stick. It was, in fact, Dostal who hit it with a high stick. It was a good sell job. The refs believed it at first and then changed the call without even a challenge. Cutter Gauthier would snap the deadlock with a snapshot that seemed to catch Igor Shesterkin by surprise. He then got the empty netter, and then 19 seconds later, the goal that I think everybody hates, the post-empty netter goal with the goalie back in net. And what was a reasonably good night for Shesterkin's not going to go down that way statistically after allowing a goal with just seconds to go. 4-1 the final. Trouba with 1 point. Kreider, kind of a non-factor in this game. Particularly didn't think he was all that relevant on any of the Ducks' power plays, but the job is done. The Ducks get the win. Ranger fans, I don't know what they were rooting for tonight. I would have liked to have seen a Ranger win personally, but it was surreal seeing Kreider there. And then, of course, the weirdest part of all, his longtime line mate Mika Zibanejad not on the ice tonight, Eddie, because he missed a team meeting because of what, and I'm quoting the head coach here, Mike Sullivan, logistical issues. Not 100% sure what that means. Seemed like he got caught in traffic. Don't know if it was weather related or not. There's been some nasty weather up there the last couple of days, but he missed a team meeting. That's a non-negotiable for Mike Sullivan. He was out. The Rangers have struggled to score this season with Mika Zibanejad, and boy, did they struggle to score tonight without him.
Yeah, it seems like in hockey in particular, and maybe I'm wrong about this because I don't follow, the NBA very closely, but it seems like in hockey, if you miss a meeting or something along those lines, it's like an automatic, even if you had a excused absence, which maybe Mika Zibanejad did in this case, not sure. I saw the same quote you did and wondered the same thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of that necessarily. If there's a legitimate reason why someone was late, then take that into consideration, be reasonable about it. But again, it seems like that's a hockey thing, man. If you're late, they don't care why or who you are. They are going to suspend you pretty much every time. And that's what they did to Mika Zibanejad. So, okay. This one, kind of like the Kings game we're going to talk about later, was a lot more competitive than the final score would indicate. If you just looked at the score and you thought, I actually did not care for that goal that Shesterkin allowed, the game-winning goal from Cutter Gauthier.
100%.
Don't know how he actually let that one go in. And if you're getting paid that kind of money, you got to make those saves. And that ended up costing them. And then the Ducks pile on a little bit at the end, but. Yeah, I'm guessing the Ducks maybe had a little bit more juice, knowing that those former Rangers were heading back in the building. And Lucas Dostal may be the best goalie that NHL fans across the countries maybe don't know about, but very solid, young, up-and-coming goaltender. He's been out for a while, but the Ducks now healthy, now back, and looked pretty good in this one.
He made some pretty big saves in this one. And it's worth noting the Rangers are they are a pretty mid team, to quote the kids. They're an average NHL team, but I think they've also been a very unlucky average NHL team. And that is not a good, those are not a good set of combos, right? Like the Will Cooley goal off of his skate, he's coming in trying to make a play, and Shesterkin made a bunch of really good saves. And I had originally thought that it was a off the rebound shot was put back in because he couldn't make 3 consecutive saves. The reality was guy came charging in and kind of was a bull in a china shop a little bit. He really needed to go in and make a play on the puck. And instead he was going in, guns blazing, and made a play that he's going to regret. And then, the goal that Shesterkin allowed, I think the only argument I could make, and I did not make this argument in real time, he might've been screened by his own defenseman, but I also did not care for that one. But these are the type of margins that I think happen when you're having a season like this one, or when you are in a situation like this where talent wise you're not exactly where I think you want to be as an organization. The things that happen on the margins matter. So maybe a little screen by the defender, a quick release by a guy that you're not expecting, who does have a really, really good snapshot. Cutter Gauthier is flirting with 20 goals already at this point. He has a real chance at 40 goals this season. Those little things kind of accumulate, stack up, build up. I will say this, and then we can move on to the Battle of Florida. The one quick note on Mika Zibanejad. I don't mind the decision. Like, I remember Tom Coughlin in the NFL always, 5 minutes early is like, or on time is 5 minutes late was, I think, his big thing. So like, this is something that I think is kind of an old school culture setting thing. The thing worth noting is, I think what this says is Mike Sullivan is very confident in his job security with the New York Rangers. And I have kind of been suspecting this, that I wonder if Sullivan has basically been told, you're going to get 4, 5, 6 years almost guaranteed no matter what. Granted, 6 would be longer than the contract he signed, but I have a sneaking suspicion that their expectation is that there's almost nothing that he could do to lose that job. So that's sort of my thought process there, is that's an indication of who's in charge, and it is Mike Sullivan. Let's talk about the Battle of Florida. 5-2 win for Florida. And, there were some fireworks in this one, physical fireworks as always. And Florida jumped out to a 4-0 lead. Sam Reinhart has started cooking. He had a power play goal and a shorty. Brad Marchand scored his 19th of the season. Anton Lundell with a goal. The key is Andre Vasilevsky still out, going on nearly 2 weeks now. Jonas Johansson was not great in this one. And what's funny is I'm starting to wonder if really two takeaways from this game. Will Tampa wind up being better off for not having had to play Vasilevsky 60-plus games like they've been running him to the ground the last couple of seasons? And should the rest of the East be on the lookout, on high alert for the Florida Panthers?
Well, maybe. I thought in this game, Tampa Bay, who not only is missing their goalie, but they're missing 3 key defensemen as well. Hedman's out. Cernak is out. McDonough is out as well. So they're really hurting when it comes to their defensive side of things. But Tampa Bay had a power play early on in this game, and Florida scored a shorthanded goal. And then one of those goals that's not officially a shorthanded goal, but the guy came out of the box right after a shot went wide and around the boards, and it led to a 3-on-1. And, the guy out of the penalty box was one of the extra attackers, and they scored on that one too. So a disastrous power play early on in this one that kind of set the tone, and Florida was off and running after that one. So we'll see when Matthew Tkachuk comes back. I think that they will be, if Florida squeaks into the playoffs, and if Alexander Barkov can somehow come back, this team will be motivated and loaded and somehow, some ways rested as far as a couple of their key players, and maybe ready to go. I don't think anyone would really be all that excited about playing them in the first round of the playoffs, especially if they would come in as a wild card and you're a division winner and you got to play that team in the first round.
No thanks.
I don't know about that.
No thanks. All right, we are going to go ahead and take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about that Dallas-LA game. Score was definitely not really indicative of how close that one was, but Dallas's star players did make a couple of really key plays that made a difference in that one. And then Ottawa with a desperately needed come-from-behind win. We'll talk about that coming up on the other side of this break here on Locked On NHL Game Night. Our show brought to you in part by our friends over at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast, one big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds, every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot. Chris Olave, anybody? A defense tightens up. The momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up. You can bet the next touchdown score, drive results, totals, and more. It keeps you locked into every snap, every drive, every possibility. I don't know yet if they have a line for how many defensive backs DK Metcalf is going to throw around like ragdolls, but they might add one of those soon. If you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. Back here with Eddie Garcia. I'm Alex Wiederspiel. This is Locked On NHL Game Night. And while I fully admit I was watching hockey tonight, I get alerts in real time. When something good in fantasy football happens. I really enjoyed that DK Metcalf touchdown. I didn't need it, but I enjoyed it here in the first round of the fantasy football playoffs. My fantasy hockey team not doing as well, Eddie. But Matt Duchene helped that a little bit tonight by actually coming back, scoring a goal. Needed him. Missed him. Glad he's back. But Duchene, Wyatt Johnston, Mikko Rantanen all with multi-point nights for the Stars. Stars' fourth line also adds a goal. And the backbreaker came right after LA was awfully close to tying the game on a redirection attempt. And then Mikko Rantanen scores basically on the ensuing rush. And that was kind of the backbreaker moment in this one. So 4-1 the final, empty netter included. There are things that I think LA can be happy about. Also worth noting, LA running with Anton Forsberg tonight as a backup goalie. I don't think the Kings played a bad game, but they didn't have enough to get the job done.
And that has been a story we have gotten used to a bit in LA. And typically they've been able to get a point out of it. We're not able to do that in this one. But I thought the Kings actually played a really good game. They played much better than they did in their last game at home against Calgary, which they ended up losing in overtime. I thought they did a great job shutting down for most of the game, guys like Jason Robertson and Wyatt Johnston, but Mikko Rantanen was heard from in more ways than one. He had a great primary assist on a Matt Duchene goal, their first goal, and then scored basically the game-ending goal to make it 3-1 on a nice move around Kevin Fiala, who unfortunately was back trying to play defense on him, and that wasn't going to work out. But he also had a key play in the second period when he ran into Kings goalie Darcy Kemper, made contact up in his head area. Kemper on the ice, had to leave, did not return. That is way bigger than anything that happened in this game as far as the LA Kings fans are concerned, because Kemper has been amazing this year. Probably a candidate for the Canadian Olympic team. Don't know the extent of the injury. Fingers crossed that he can come back very soon, because he has been the best player for the LA Kings this season. But the offense continues to be a huge struggle for LA. They did actually get a power play goal in this one, which is also the worst in the NHL. It was a lucky goal. Casey DeSmith, which I don't know what he was doing. He had the puck on his stick and he was looking around, and Andrei Kuzmenko just came in and poked it through him. But the offense for the Kings, their power play continues to struggle. And it just feels like they're holding on by their fingernails to that third spot in the West, which they've had pretty much all season long. But I think the Oilers are kind of starting to figure things out. They get Tristan Jarry back as well, or not back, but add him for a little bit of a juice, a little bit of a spark. So Kings have got to try and figure out some offense here very, very soon.
At a certain point, I do ask the question, is this going to be we've talked about the possibility of a coaching change, but I almost wonder if Hiller has earned a move by Ken Holland. Go get a score. I get that the trade market is brutal right now. Like even Quinn Hughes deal aside, Tristan Jarry deal aside, if you look how mushy the league currently is, it's very difficult to make a trade in the NHL right now because the market is just bone dry. Teams are not going to start selling while they think that they have a chance of getting into the playoffs, particularly teams that haven't done it in a while. So I get that it can be a challenge at the moment, but is there any chance Ken Holland says, before I make a move like this, which I don't think he's historically known for in-season firings anyway. They're pretty uncommon with him. Do you think maybe we say, hey, we got to go get a player? We got to go get another forward for this guy?
Well, I think they would like to do that, but I don't know how possible that is or who's available that's really impactful for them. And they don't have a ton when it comes to young assets, because you think of the teams that are going to be sellers, there's only a few of them. And if they're rebuilding, they don't want veteran guys. They want young pieces. They want draft picks. So, I think he would like to do that, but I don't know if that will end up being the easiest path to try and change things as far as getting this team going a bit.
Ottawa gets a desperately needed 2 points after blowing the possibility of a comeback the other night, letting up a late goal against Minnesota. They come back and force overtime on a late Jake Sanderson goal off of a feed from Tim Stutzle. What a night he had. 3 assists for Tim Stutzle, assists on all 3 Ottawa goals. And Brady Tkachuk scores his second of the season in overtime as Ottawa takes out Winnipeg 3-2, despite Connor Hellebuck getting back pretty early as far as the timeline of how long he would be out. He didn't miss a lot of time. I wonder if any of that had to do with how poorly Winnipeg has played without him. They let 1 point get away from them tonight as they had a lead late, and Ottawa takes it 3-2, the final in this one. Starting to get a little nervous about both these teams, to be honest with you. I think the good news for Ottawa is that the Eastern Conference is super mushy at the moment, and that a good week or a good 2 weeks could make a huge difference for somebody. The bad news for Winnipeg is that is not really true where they are in the Central Division. Their path is only getting harder.
Well, but still only 3 points out of a wild card spot at this point. So and now that they have Connor Hellebuck back, I think that they're probably feeling a little bit better about things. I think the one of the big storylines, kind of like LA not scoring or having a bad power play, is the secondary scoring for Winnipeg. And here they go in this game, and they get secondary scoring, and then the big guns don't show up. No Scheifele, no Connor, no Velarde in this one. You get Pionk and Stanley scoring goals, and then the other guys don't show up, even though they came close in overtime. But this was the game of the night, I thought. A couple of former Vezina winners in net in this one too, that at times looked really good. And then, Ottawa comes in there. They were 2-6 since Brady Tkachuk had come back. So they get a win with him, and he gets the game winner on the nice overtime finish off the Stutzle one-timer. So I think both these teams are very similar. I think they're still there. Ottawa trying to figure it out now that Tkachuk has returned, and I think Winnipeg probably feeling better that Connor Hellebuyck is back. But again, their issues are very transparent. They need some extra scoring, but when they get it, they need their big guys to still show up too, and that didn't happen tonight.
3-8-1, by the way, since Hellebuyck went out. Obviously, he's been back now for a couple of games, but 3-8-1 for Winnipeg. So two teams definitely, and I'm going to borrow my favorite description for any hockey team when they're not doing well has officially become they are scuffling, because that's the perfect description, Eddie. And I know I stole that from you, but I also that's my works cited is Eddie Garcia, because I had never thought of it that way before, but it's exactly what they were doing in that moment.
Well, I'm glad that scuffling could become a regular part of your vocabulary here.
I love it. I love it. I never thought to use it before in that context. It's fantastic. All right, we're going to go ahead and take our next break. We're going to come back, chat a little bit about Nashville and St. Louis, and we've got a little question for Eddie and I at the very, very end, and very likely is going to include those two teams between the Predators and Blues, both who are having very, very tough seasons. We're back here in just a moment on Locked On NHL Game Night. Our show brought to you in part by our friends over at Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? That's easy. Just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs puts your post at the top of the page, gets you the help you need to reach the right candidates faster. Now, I think we've all been in that spot where we need the right hire and we need them like yesterday. The pressure's on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs comes in handy. They make sure that your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now, you can speed up the hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all you need. All right, so we finish up the night with Nashville and St. Louis. This was a game that it didn't feel like the Blues were really ever in after the first period. Nashville started kind of piling up goals, and the Blues struggling to piece together significant chances for a lot of this game. Philip Forsberg with a hat trick. Dalibor Dvorsky scores both Blues goals, but with an empty netter, the final is 5-2 in this one as the Nashville Predators get the win over the St. Louis Blues. These are two teams that have, to put it frankly, not had the seasons that they hoped. For Nashville, obviously, I think there was a little bit of what you might call wish casting on the part of the Predators after the way last season went to see if they'd get better this year. For St. Louis, this is and continues to be one of the most shocking stories, I think, of the season. Listen, I don't think anyone was picking the Blues to win the Stanley Cup, but the way the Blues finished last season under Jim Montgomery, the way they played at the end of the season, they won like 21 of 30 games down the stretch. They nearly upset the President's Trophy winner. And to come out and look not just bad, but comically bad for much of the season. St. Louis now, by points percentage, is actually behind the Nashville Predators and officially in last in the Central Division. There are a lot of things I would have said at the start of the season if you had told me that, hey, the Blues are going to maybe underperform your expectations, Alex. That is not one of the things I thought we would have been saying more than a third of the way, nearly halfway through the season. So, Eddie, Nashville, St. Louis, it's been a tough year for both. Right now, they're both in the lottery conversation. I guess the question is, are they going to stay there?
I think most likely they are. And, you can look at the standings and it's so tight, in both conferences. And you're like, if you're St. Louis, you're like, hey, we're only 4 points out of a wild card spot. But of course, you have to pass 3 other teams, and those 3 other teams are all probably better than you, right? So, in Nashville, they're playing a little bit better of late. They've won 5 of 7. They've had Steven Stamkos had a 4-goal game the other night. Philip Forsberg gets a hat trick in this one. So at least they're showing some signs of life. But no, there's no question. Both these teams are certainly disappointments. I think for Nashville, it was a lot of, okay, they were a playoff team a couple years ago. Last year, it was a huge disaster. Well, they decided we're going to stick with it and let's see who the real team is. Well, it turns out the real team was the team from last year. So there's not a lot of sellers out there in the NHL at this point, but you would have to think that these 2 teams are going to be sellers as this season goes along.
And which perfectly leads us into the next question. Excellent segue, Eddie, or tease, whatever, but that's probably better broadcast nomenclature. And that question is, who is the next Quinn Hughes? And what I mean by that is, I think Jason Robertson is certainly, there's a chance he might not finish his career with Dallas. He only has 1 year left on his deal. It's a big contract. We'll see, but that's a more typical situation. Quinn Hughes, of course, one of the best talents to ever suit it up for the Vancouver Canucks, and them trading him is truly a nightmare scenario. And for it to go down the way that it went down with him, I guess, not wanting to re-sign there, not feeling like he could win there, wanting to get closer to his brothers. Basically, everything was pointing towards him leaving, and Vancouver ultimately makes this deal. They make this trade, even though they've still got him under contract for another season, even though he's still in the prime of his career. Of the 10 teams who played tonight, do you think there's another Quinn Hughes, regardless of position, out there right now who we would be shocked thinking this guy is going to finish his career in this uniform, but it's just not going to happen?
I really don't, to be honest with you. I think there maybe are a few players out there that are fringe star players that could be on the move, but there's nobody that compares to Quinn Hughes. He's one of the top 2 players at his position, and he's in his prime, and he gets moved. There's nobody, I don't think, on any of these teams that I think is realistic that they're going to could be moved that would fit that description. But if you're asking me, of the teams that played tonight, who's the one guy that could be moved and could be impactful for a team that's trying to make a run in the playoffs, I think there's one clear name. And I don't know that he's a star player, but he has won a Stanley Cup and he has won a Conn Smythe Trophy. And that is Ryan O'Reilly with the Nashville Predators. And I think that there are plenty of teams out there that are looking for that second center who's got experience, who's can be a clutch player. So that would be the one guy that I think is very realistic to be moved, that I think a lot of teams would be interested in.
So without violating the terms of my own question, I think maybe folks would not be shocked by Brady Tkachuk. So I'm gonna pivot, and how about I go with a different one? A guy we would have certainly expected to finish his career in a Nashville Predator uniform. What about Philip Forsberg? If this continues like this, is he more valuable to the Predators as a trade chip? I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think he's one of the most important players and most impactful players in franchise history, and he, to this day, probably holds the crown for the single greatest short-sighted trade that we've seen in the NHL, the Erad for Forsberg trade that landed him in Nashville in the first place. But boy, there's a small part of me that does wonder. He definitely has trade protection, and that's the other big difference here.
Right. And O'Reilly does not, by the way. O'Reilly does
right.
not have any trade protection.
Right. Now, allegedly, Nashville is going to treat him as if he has trade protection. I'll believe that when I see that, but that has been the reporting.
Yeah,
but
I have heard that too.
Pretty strange. It's a pretty strange thing to do. I get why, like, respect for a veteran and you know, for the future, you want guys to sign with you and feel like they're not going to just get dealt. But I don't know. I think trades are a part of the game, a part of the business, and I think guys should expect that if they do not have trade protection, that there is no reason to think that call might not come one day. So I'm always a little bothered by that conversation, especially when it comes up around Ryan O'Reilly, because it's just like it's a part of the game. It's part of the business. It's literally how teams get better.
And if you didn't negotiate that in your contract, then that's on you.
Yeah. Or your agent or whoever. But
right.
Very good. Okay, well, I don't know the next time the Rangers and Kings play that we're on together, but I'm going to keep a note of this because, again, I'm pretty sure we're right that they have won one time with you and I hosting a show together, and we are into December now. It's the middle of December. We're closing in on the Christmas break, and that still hasn't occurred. So, Eddie, we'll keep an eye on that.
Maybe that says something about our teams.
I think it's more likely it's
mid, as you said.
Yeah.
Mid, as you said, yes.
Mid. Very, very mid. Anyway, thanks for tuning in, everybody, to Locked On NHL Game Night. Make sure you subscribe and follow the NHL Pod to get all the latest episodes. I'm on social media as the Radio Spiel. He is Eddie on Fox. You can follow us at our respective platforms and whatnot. Did Locked On NHL make your Spotify Wrapped? Prove it on social media to secure a free month of our brand new Everydayer Club. Just tag our national Locked On Podcast Network account on any social platform. We'll drop you a code. Be one of the first to join the Everydayer Club to get your favorite show ad-free. That's right, ad-free and exclusive access to the members-only Discord channel. That's a lot of fun as well. If you want complete coverage of your favorite NHL team, good news. There's a Locked On NHL Team podcast and YouTube show for you because we have one for every NHL team. And this show, Locked On NHL Game Night, is here for you every single night of the season, including the playoffs, to wrap up the night and all the action in the NHL. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this show if you're watching on YouTube. We would like to see your thoughts, not only on tonight's games, but is there a player that you can see who has never played for anybody else, who fits that star, maybe not superstar that Quinn Hughes is, but star status that you just think, hey, they might not finish their time on that team? Let us know in the comments section on YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. That'll do it for this episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. For Eddie Garcia, I'm Alex Wiederspiel. Thanks for listening and for watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.